Hello everyone, this is Dr. Aeronautics. I apologize, it has been so long since I've created a video that I've uploaded just thereafter uploading, and especially a train video. I can tell you what's been happening is my room has basically been overheating. My air conditioner is not keeping up, and when I turn my computer on, it generates so much waste heat that the air conditioner is not able to keep up. So hopefully we can make it through this journey. It's finally started to cool off some. I had the windows open, so no promises. Today we are driving on the Port Road branch. We bring up a map here of the PRRV2 route, or at least a snippet of it. You can see the Port Road branch is the diagonal top left to bottom right line. It basically runs fairly straight, but only the portion up to where the first line comes in from the right, the Susquehanna low-grade line, is it called the Port Road branch. And the Port Road branch runs from Perryville, Maryland, up through Safe Harbor, Pennsylvania, at which point when the low-grade line comes on from the right side, it becomes the Enola branch. And then at some point we're going to cross the river, continue up the Enola branch, and then get onto the Pittsburgh line. The entire line is going to follow the Susquehanna River up past the Shocks Bridge, which is where we're going to cross it, all the way to Duncannon, and then at Duncannon we'll bear off onto the Juniata River, and we will follow that up to our final destination of Lewistown. Today we are leading approximately 10 chemical cars, led by a lovely sounding GP-59. We're actually starting on the local siding here just north of the Perryville MARC station, and then we will turn on to the Port Road branch. And the goal is to arrive at Lewistown approximately around sunset. I apologize in advance because this is an old freight line. At one time it was even electrified, believe it or not, and you could go really, really, really fast, but not anymore. It's a little bit more slow. So if we end up going 15 miles an hour for a couple miles, my apologies. Now, Norfolk Southern owns the line, so this is very similar to what you would see on the line nowadays. And let's see, I wanted to get on the road on 617. Now is our time. Road branch is a very beautiful train line. You can actually just Google pictures of it. It runs up the Susquehanna River at river elevation, basically. The Susquehanna being the largest river flowing into the Atlantic Ocean from the United States East Coast, and the largest and the longest, and the oldest too. So we are actually going to be traveling through some quite scenic areas. In real life it would be a lot more scenic, but even with the limited amount of simulation that's going on here, it should still look very nice. The simulation that we're using is the PRRV2 route through OpenRails. It's not very realistic. There are several locations where I will say, "Oh, we're at Tome right now," and then the mileposts, or sorry, not the mileposts, the platform and siding labels will say that we are in Paquia, for instance, and I'll have to, basically correct that and say, okay, now we're coming through it. You're missing a lot of detail, but like I said, I think you'll still enjoy the trip. All the way through Lewistown, we will be going into the Appalachian Mountains. The age of the river allows several water gaps to be present, and we're starting from the tidal Susquehanna River, where it flows into the Chesapeake Bay. We're still about 200 miles away from the Atlantic Ocean, believe it or not, but the Susquehanna River becomes salt as it transitions to the tidal Chesapeake Bay. Because the Port Road branch is at the water level, I would not be surprised if you did some excavation of the Chesapeake Bay, right where the Susquehanna River flows out, the area known as the Susquehanna Flats, and you dug through the marsh grasses there. You would probably find several rail cars that have been washed downriver in a major storm or flood. I think the record of the Susquehanna at Port Deposit is something like 45 feet. So the river is only about 10 feet below the tracks. So that means at some point the tracks were covered in 35 feet of rushing water. The lower Susquehanna is approximately anywhere between surface rocks and rapids all the way through about 55 feet deep. That's about what it does. It is not navigable more than a couple miles based on a dam. That's just because of its geology. It's covered in rocks. There's probably hardly any vehicles that can actually traverse it, other than maybe rubber rafts. Pass a couple dams along the way. Now it's not shown for some reason in this simulation, but back in the day, not anymore, but back in the day, there used to be a branch line that would go off to the right there, up the hill, and actually meet the then B&O Philadelphia sub. now it's the CSX sub, Philadelphia sub. But that itself is coming across on a bridge right there over the Susquehanna River. And mind you, the part of the Susquehanna that we see right now, that is only half of it. The land that you see on the other side is Garrett Island, and you can just make out a second truss on the bridge. That's the other half. Garrett Island is really interesting because it used to be a volcano, and we're talking East Coast, right? How long ago? Like 500 million years ago, back when the Susquehanna River was young. If not non-existent, because why would a volcano literally appear in the middle of a river? It's actually really amazing that that is the case. Okay, once we see, or rather cross milepost 1, we're limited at 15 until we get to milepost PD.8, and then we can accelerate a little bit. In general, the speed will get faster as we get further up the line, which is nice. Now passing under the CSX Philadelphia sub. Alright, 30 miles an hour. Okay, and if this were modern times too, on the left you would be able to see the I-95 Millard Tidings Bridge. The Susquehanna River is navigable by boat up as far as Port Deposit, and at that point rocks have crisscrossed the entire river, and it's no longer navigable to boats. Let's see if we can get a little bit farther out here to see the Susquehanna Flats. So if you continue all the way down there past the Northeast Corridor Bridge, just beyond that last bridge where you see the horizon, that's the Susquehanna Flats. And in some places, this is realistic where you cannot see the horizon because it's that wide. It's something like, I think it's about 8 miles wide. And it's shaped like a big head, interestingly enough. It's also known as the head of the bay. And whereas the Susquehanna River is approximately 55 feet deep on average, at some point, if you tried to ford the river, it shallows out to about 3 feet all throughout the Susquehanna Flats. will be traveling approximately 80 miles up the Susquehanna. Don't expect it to get any smaller because it's about 450 miles long. Should show up at 2.4. That's where we are now. Let's see. At West Rock, we could do 40 miles an hour. And I do have a chart in front of me that shows the differences between where things are on Microsoft Train Simulator, well, I'm using OpenRails, and where they are in real life. I hear they're simulating the rapids. Now this rock coming up on the right is pretty interesting. I remember it was one of the assets in the Maria's Pass route. I'm pretty sure it is somewhere between Columbia Falls and Kalispell in Montana. I think it's an actual landmark, but I see it just haphazardly pasted all over the place on this route as if it's just an average rock. Okay, so I think this house right here is trying to simulate port deposit. Right about here, a highway comes down the hill, number 222, and we'll basically be following Highway 222 the whole way up. At least more or less. Once we get to Conowingo, 222 will bear off and get above. It'll stay on top of the cliffside here. We'll stay at the bottom. There they go. Stubborn deer. Very stubborn. Here we go. Okay. This is port deposit right here. So, in real life, what you would see if you were right here is you would see a row of rocks and rapids coming on from the left side and slowly pinching out all this blue water to the right side. And port deposit has a couple docks. Once you go north of port deposit, that's the end. If you came in from the Atlantic Ocean in anything other than in a fiberglass small boat or something, you're not getting any further upriver. And Port Deposit is a pretty tiny town, but it is a very dense town. They've got a couple of conjoined 2- and 3-story buildings there along the main street. And it sits below a huge 100-foot escarpment It's kind of terraced a little bit, so there are trees going up it. It's not like it's just bare rock, but it's steep to the point where it's difficult to climb, unless you had climbing gear. Okay, so we're passing Tome right here. And that one actually happens to be close. It's funny that I use that as the example. So in 3 more miles, we'll be able to do 40. That's the whole Susquehanna River now. It's not really that wide. I think it's my draw distance is a little bit short. Let's see, at Port Deposit, I go right across. Actually, it's only 0.75 miles, so that's I think that's just over 1 kilometer. Yeah, 1.2 kilometers wide. And then there's another set of islands coming up now. So we are now climbing above the river because in a couple miles we're going to reach, and that is after West Rock, we're going to reach the Conowingo Dam. Now you have to be very careful when you say it because there's a Conowingo, and Conowingo is in Pennsylvania. As I recall, it is west of, I want to say it's west of Harrisburg, east of Carlisle. Let me look that up right now. Okay, so it is west of Harrisburg and east of Carlisle, but it's much further south. It would be more accurate to say that it's between Gettysburg and York. So I'm not going to confuse that. So this is the Conowingo Dam, holding up the Conowingo Reservoir with the Susquehanna River. And it's a very old dam. I think it's about 90 years old. It's a hydroelectric station. Now, interestingly enough, to give you an idea of how steep the banks of the Susquehanna are, the Susquehanna, downstream of the dam, with bare rocks, is about 0.56 miles wide. Elevation 22 feet. The high side of the dam, elevation 108 feet. So basically a 90-foot increase in height, 0.85 miles wide. So we're talking an increase of about 0.2 of a mile, or about 1,000 feet. That's it. This dam has some serious issues with it because over the past 90 years, flood after flood after flood on the Susquehanna has continued washing sediment downstream from Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania used to be forests, and then most of it's now farms. So it's not, the farm soil won't hold the sediment. The sediment flows downstream, and it won't settle until it finds a spot with slow-moving water. And when you have a 90-foot deep reservoir, that volume allows the water carrying the sediment to slow down. And then it drops the sediment onto the bottom. And once the sediment lays down, it gets trapped there because you've got this big wall of water, and water is only taken off from the top of the Susquehanna River to go over the Conowingo Dam. And because the silt is so much heavier than the water itself, it's not getting lofted up again. It's going to sit down there forever. So then what happens? Well, instead of having a 90-foot deep reservoir, now you have an 80-foot deep reservoir. And then you have a 70-foot deep reservoir. Okay, so we've just passed through West Rock, so we are good to go 40 until we get to Pilot. And Pilot is at milepost 13. So let me see if I can actually look this up and see how much sediment has built up. I'm pretty sure that that area is very shallow. And another issue with the sediment buildup is the sediment I mentioned is heavy. If enough of it builds up, there's actually a chance of a dam failure. Now the chance I think is pretty low, but it's not a good position to be in. So if I go onto the USGS.gov website, they actually say that the Conowingo Dam is filled to 90% of its sediment capacity. Correction, 92%. So at full capacity, half of the reservoir will be filled with sediment. So instead of 90 feet deep reservoir, you'll have a 45-foot deep reservoir. So yeah, they're going to have some problems in a couple decades. Now, if oops, I didn't want to do that. Is it F? Yeah, it's F5. I can actually get the elevation displayed on here using a trick that I found based on the camera height. So we started about 50 feet above sea level, and we should be climbing the whole time. Roughly. That's not 100% true, but if you can see my mouse cursor here, at the bottom, where you see camera, there's a negative number, negative 11,044, then 14,302, then negative 750 now, changing quick, then 36, then 2010, after that, you see 32.6 m. That's our elevation. Right now, 33 meters. So that translates to approximately 100. Actually, that's a little higher than 100 feet. That's about 110 feet. Let's see if we should actually be able to see the Conowingo Dam, though I don't think it's in the correct location. There's more of the rocks. They did a nice job with scenery. The only concerns that I have are based on the fact that the manual that I have from the railroad says that milepost 13 is at West Pilot, and I'm sorry, the manual that I have says that West Pilot is at, yeah, milepost 13, and Microsoft Train Simulator has it at milepost 15.2. You know, that's the kind of stuff. So the scenery is realistic, but the problem is the railroad infrastructure is actually off a little bit. Yeah, so this is a prime example right through here of why the Susquehanna is America's largest unnavigable river. You know, where you sort of see grass stretching across, kind of like green colored grass. Those are rock fields that have water flowing over them, to the point where you could probably walk across with your hiking boots, but they don't go all the way across the river. You know, eventually you're going to hit a channel that's like 40 feet deep, so it's not a free ride across. Whoops, I'm speeding. So I've still got one more mile to do 40. Also, another thing that I can do is bring up the, there we go. If you look just above the speedometer, I put the compass on. And for those of you who are really good at latitude and longitude navigation, there you go. That's a good way to navigate. The Mason-Dixon line, which divides Maryland from Pennsylvania, occurs at 39 degrees and 721 hundredths. So when you see 39.721, that means we've entered Pennsylvania. Alright, this is the slowdown point. We're going to need to get down to 35. Until 17.5, at which point we'll have to slow down to 30 temporarily for a reverse curve. And by that point, we would have already entered Pennsylvania. Now, we also should have seen the Conowingo Dam by now. I think it is in incorrect location. Conowingo Dam should be, let's see, about 2 miles north of West Rock. So, West Rock was at milepost 8, so it should have been back at 10. Maybe I missed it, but this should all be deep water if that were the case, because of the reservoir. interlocking. We're at 13.3. This is pilot interlocking. Which in real life is at milepost 11.6. Let's see where the sun's at right now. Yeah, I could see us making it right around sundown. Let's see, right about here, actually I think it's, yeah, I forgot to mention it, it would have been below the Conowingo Dam. That's what happens when scenery isn't up to par. We would have crossed a very large creek flowing into the Susquehanna Octorero Creek, which comes down from, I think it's north of Oxford, near the Atglen area. It's a pretty long creek, it's about 40 miles long. Below my cutoff temperature. If we reach that temperature, it's sayonara for the computer. Save, exit, shut down. Okay, let's see. Milepost 15.2. This is West Pilot. And I think you are in for a pleasant surprise, despite the fact that we are about 60 miles now from the Blue Mountains, which are the easternmost Appalachian Mountains in our area. You will be surprised to find that we will actually need to turn our headlights on bright and make a quick horn honk. Yes, that's right, there are a number of tunnels that we will go through along the river. Okay, there's a dam. Now, there's a second dam further upriver. If you thought that the Conowingo was all there was, think again. There's a second dam around Holtwood. But that is a lot far into Pennsylvania. We're actually getting really close, 39.721. So we're about 100th, less than a mile now from the Pennsylvania border. Now I think this is, the tunnel's in the correct position compared to the state line. Actually, let's see, there's a, yeah, 17.5. I'm going to let my speed cut down. Okay, well, it's not telling me what dam this is, but this is a lot like what Conowingo Dam would look like. And see, just like that, is he going to make it? Just made it. That was close. And just like that, we're at water level again. Just in time, that 30-mile-per-hour curve should be up here. So you see just that little elevation difference, and that's it. Not much wider. And I forgot to mention too, because I was distracted by the dam, we just now crossed into Pennsylvania. Clear that, we are back up to 35 until we reach Midway, which is at milepost 24.4. lot of the rivers have at its widest here. It's about 1.5 miles wide. And let's see if we can be a little bit further up. Might be able to see the power plant. Conditioner has been off for some time. I don't like what is going on. Okay, I just felt it kick on. Thank goodness. Can't wait for cooler weather. Cooler weather lets me save on my power bill in that I get to have fun while heating the house. When it's desired to heat the house, that's a great thing. When you're having fun heating the house and trying to air condition it at the same time, that's not so fun. Unless someone else pays your power bill. Alright, let's see if we can see the power plant. The answer is no. But it's pretty obvious those power lines lead straight into the Beach Bottom power plant, which is directly across the river. Muddy Run that we just crossed, there is an enormous reservoir that is just up from here. It's a very very low-running creek. It's amazing. The reservoir is actually wider than the Susquehanna River. Okay, we're less than 1 mile from the 30 restriction at Midway. Some more river islands coming up here. Too much longer, we'll be able to go a little bit faster. I think Train Simulator needs some greener terrain textures, because the green on the other side, that looks good if you're in a grass or soddy field, but if you have heavily forested and rocky banks, as the Susquehanna does, you need a darker green texture with some spots of grain too. If done well enough, you wouldn't even be able to tell that that's a bare hill over there, that there's assets missing. Days I should bring the GG1 up here and run through the Port Road at the original speed limits. I'm pretty sure that you could do 60 miles an hour back in the day. Okay, now this is the stuff I'm talking about. So let's see. We're north of Midway. Can't be talking. Actually, it might be me that's wrong this time. So this is Muddy Run. Yeah, the reservoir would be right up that mountain. I'm not sure what the first. first thing we would have seen up there is. But, First Creek. 2.5 miles from 28. Yeah, okay. That was actually me in the wrong. So that first creek that we saw would have been somewhere around Drewmore, I think. And that might have been a renamed town because I don't remember crossing the Drewmore. I do remember a town slightly before Midway. I think that was actually Peach Bottom. The road bridge coming up is Pennsylvania State Road 372. It's one of the few highways to cross the Susquehanna. And this actually isn't a major highway either. It's pretty standard as far as roads go in this part of Pennsylvania. You know, two lanes wide. So I consider it lucky that it happened to get a bridge, but back in the day, Pennsylvania used to be really, really good about creating public works projects in unlikely areas. Probably the most prominent example of that is the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which in its day, in the 1940s, to see something with interstate standards, it would have been almost as crazy as seeing flying cars today. You know, suddenly the maximum speed limits aren't 30 and 40 miles an hour, they're 65 and 70. That's an island we're looking at there. So the river, well, maybe not. The river's only half a mile wide here. Just about to say, if it's correctly seen, we'll see the Holtwood Dam. There it is. It's like all the stuff in Maryland is off, and then as soon as you get into Pennsylvania, suddenly everything is where it should be. So here's something that's cool to do. All this cliffside, that's about to become the slope of the reservoir ahead. So everything from about where the camera is now on down is all going to get filled with water. Interesting too that they decide to put 372 across a structure different than the Holtwood Dam. Normally the dams carry the roadway, but it looks like Holtwood Dam is a low head dam. So I hope they have that well guarded, because as someone who's a fan of water, you should fear low head dams like the devil. They've been nicknamed the drowning machine. Okay, we have an advanced approach, so all that means is I can't accelerate to 35. There's one you don't see too often. That is, I think, limited approach. We'll take this at 30 miles per hour and expect the next signal to possibly read approach. And there we go. Suddenly the water level has come up again. Oh, we should check our elevation now. 64 meters, so that's going to translate to about, I think that's somewhere around 150 feet. It's got to be higher than that. We're about 180 feet in real life elevation. Alright, so now this reverse curve is 30 mile per hour curve. And as things would look now, we're getting close to safe harbor. Alright, we've got a limited clear. So we'll take this at 30 miles per hour, and once clear, we'll be able to accelerate. is 36, we'll have to slow to 30. And that's the point where we pick up the low-grade Susquehanna route from Atglen. At this point is about 230 feet, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I actually have an elevation readout on my cheat sheet. that harbor interlocking is at milepost 36, even though we're at about 34.5. That's where the speed limit decreases to 30, so I'm going to assume that I can manage that until we arrive at that milepost 36. Got to be a reason why I did that. Lovely placed scenery items here. I haven't solved if there's actually a glitch here or something wrong with my installation. Okay, now if you look up, you can just see another power line way up at the top of the bank. That is the low-grade line, which has now come on from the right. And you will actually be able to see the low-grade safe harbor trestle, which is quite famous and pretty amazing. Okay, so that was Safe Harbor, and we're going to do this speed until we arrive at West Harbor, milepost 40. And if you thought 2 dams was enough, well, here's a third one. This is the Safe Harbor Dam, bringing the elevation of the Susquehanna River from 172 feet up to 222 feet. So about a 50-foot rise to form Lake Clark. interesting right here. It's some sort of mill race design. It still exists, believe it or not. Interesting. It's not every day that you see a stream going over the tracks. And yet we are not underground. Okay, this is at West End Harbor Interlocking, so after the train clears this, we can go back up to 35. Need to hold my horses just a little bit longer. So gradually, inch by inch really, the low grade and the port road are getting closer and closer together in elevation. And at some point we'll meet. And when that happens, weird things happen. And then we get to go faster. And when I say faster, I mean faster than we've gone this entire trip. river's getting really wide again. Okay, we've got an approach signal. No, that's an approach medium. Did not see the lower head at first. Okay, so we just get down to 30. Okay, this looks like the interchange right here. So we're probably actually near Cress. The speed limit would be dropping to 30 miles per hour anyway. Alright, and we've got a limited approach. So we'll expect to receive another approach signal. Look at the route monitor. So we just passed milepost 43, incrementing since Perryville, and now up ahead is milepost 34. So what in the world is going on? Well, back in the day that they built the low-grade line, they decided that the low-grade line was coming out of Philadelphia, therefore it was to be the dominant rail line and controlling the mileposts. Well, as things should come to pass, the low-grade line no longer exists, although it has a rail trail. So now there is a milepost jump, even in modern times, from 43 to 32. So here is Cress Interlocking right here. We're actually going to lose 9 miles. So whatever the milepost is now, you have to add 9, and that's how many miles we've driven. But in modern times, this section that is considered the Enola branch back in the day, which is when this train simulator is, when the train simulator route is seen for. Even though it was called the Enola branch at that time, it is now called the Port Deposit branch, all the way up to Marysville Yard. track I'm on. I'm on 1 or 2, because from here on out, it's 2 tracks. It appears that I will be on track 2. This is the port interlocking where we interchange with the low-grade line. At one time, this was the end of the port road, but in modern times, this is only the halfway point. To accelerate back to 35. Be able to see speeds that we haven't seen before yet. The low-grade line runs faster than the port deposit line, at least as built. Now that gargantuan arch bridge coming up is what used to be the Pennsylvania Route 462 bridge. It sadly has been demolished and replaced with a more modern bridge. And we should be about to see a second bridge. And that second bridge is a US 30. Which in this part of Pennsylvania is limited access. this is now the town of Columbia. We're finally out of the trench, or canyon, if you will, and we're finally going to get to see some suburban Pennsylvania towns before we pass off into the mountains now. Doing a distance check, we are about 30 miles away from the nearest Appalachian Ridge, the Blue Mountains, with its namesake, Blue Mountain. Okay, I believe this is Cola Interlocking right here. I need to pay more attention to my speed. We could be going faster. Okay, this is it. Once we clear this interlocking, we'll be able to go 45. So I guess perhaps at the time that it was simulating it, the US 30 bridge may have been the only bridge across. Because I'm only seeing one bridge here. So perhaps 472 didn't exist. The new US 30 bridge didn't exist. Ah, yes, and then the arch bridge would have been US 30. That makes sense, because limited access highways were not a thing when US 30 would have been built. And 462 goes right through Wrightsville and Columbia, which is what you'd expect for an old highway. That's what it was. So the remains of that bridge was the original 30. And 30 now runs on a new bridge that's about where we are now. Once we see lake interlocking, we'll be able to do 50. This route path, there were no signaling issues. Not sure why we were receiving a stop signal, but everything is fine. And since I was distracted, yes, that was lake. do another elevation check. So we're between lake and shock, so we're roughly 270 feet in elevation. Have to get used to going up and down quickly in throttle positions because there's a lot of elevation changes, ups and downs, one right after the other, as soon as we get into the Blue Mountains. So we've got an approach medium. So we should prepare to be going past the next signal at no more than 30 miles an hour. And I can tell you the reason we're receiving that is for the shocks bridge. Because we are on what used to be called the Royalton branch, but then it was called the Enola branch, and now it's called the Port Road branch. So what happened was the straight ahead trains would go straight, and then if you wanted to access the Shocks Bridge, you had to turn off, and that's exactly what we're doing since the route is simulated for the 1950s. So we actually have to exit. Now, of course, this route is signaled not anywhere near as good as it should, so instead of proceeding to apply the brakes so that we can get down to 30 miles per hour before the next time we see the signal, we'll just let the speed coast down until we see 30. up ahead, we're going to cross that. That's the Shocks Bridge. Approach medium followed by a limited approach. That's not a sight that you would commonly see. compressor's going to be on for forever and a half. This bridge still exists today, and trains routinely cross it. Okay, another limited approach. And now finally we've got a limited clear. So if we continued straight, that would be the Royalton branch that would lead into downtown Harrisburg. We're going to bypass that and go to the West Bank now. The Shocks Bridge is roughly 2,278 feet long. About 2/3 of a kilometer. The rest of our trip will be up the west bank of the Susquehanna. Okay, we've cleared the interlocking. We're allowed back up to 40. See, the sun should be starting to come into the front window once we turn back north again. Alright, we're allowed 50 now. across the Shocks Bridge, our elevation is now 300 feet above sea level. Just cycling earlier. It feels really cool again. So I think I'm good to go. If there was going to be a problem, I would have noticed it by now, because the temperature outside is coming down. There's more clouds. My air conditioner's getting into the shade. Beautiful beach. I'm looking at the satellite image, and it doesn't look anywhere near that beautiful, but that's kind of nice. Also, another thing to note about the satellite image is when I look at it, the east side of the river is looking very yellow, and the west side, where I am here, is looking very blue. So if I know a thing or two about hydrology, I would say that means that the water is much deeper on this side than it is on the east bank, which makes sense because this is the outside of the curve. That's where the water is always the deepest. Interlock. Interesting. This is a town of Lago. Yeah. So there's Conowingo, Conowingo, and Wago. Or no, Conowingo, Conowingo, Wago. right time, we might be able to see the Royalton branch on the other side of the river. I don't see it right now. Actually, yes. Just ahead, I can see it. It's ahead on the right side. You can see the 138 kilovolt towers. Or, yeah, 138 kilovolt. Milepost 52, there's a curve that limits us to 40. There it is. So at this point, York Haven, there's another Conowingo. Oh my gosh. So there's a Wago, a Conowingo, another Conowingo, and a Conowingo. What a fleet. So the Susquehanna goes through Conowingo Falls, and it shrinks to just 1/3 of a mile wide, temporarily, before ballooning out again to 1.5 miles. Once we exit the next turn, we'll be back up to 50. That you see coming on, that's another nuclear power plant. However, unlike Peach Bottom, that is a very, very famous power plant. That right there, let me put it this way, a very, very famous nuclear power plant. That right there is 3 Mile Island. The nuclear power plant that was named for its partial core meltdown. The only one in the United States, at least, of a nuclear power plant. Alright, we're back on 250. And the route has these signs, the anti-nuclear signs, all over the place, especially on the other side. In fact, you can see, even though it occurred in the 1980s and this route is seen in the 1950s, guess what? You get to see the disaster. Did I say 80s? I think it was 76. See if we can also find the yeah, it was reactor number 2, 1979. Okay, well, that's just an upside down 6. Let's see if we can find a map of the facility, because we can see the reactor cores here. And of course, I searched 3 Mile Island map, and they want to show me the entire state of Pennsylvania. Unit 2. Viewed from the west. Oh, that's the way we're viewing it right now. Okay, so Unit 2 is that white domed building right there where I'm putting my mouse. That's it, right there. So all the problems came from that white domed building right there. And being 1979, that was 42 years ago. Landed, that's Harrisburg International Airport. So, as you might imagine, we were very near to Harrisburg. Wow, he just pulled like a 9G turn. Don't tell me he's going to circle around and land on a runway. Oh my gosh. That's like a Boeing 737 doing a Cessna pattern. Oh, that would be so painful in real life. And he's doing a touch and go. Okay, there's the sun finally coming onto the screen. Well, that's going to make all the colors strange. I know I've said it a bunch of times on OpenRails. I'm going to say it one more time, just briefly, I promise. I'm so sorry you have to hear it again, but if you're not watching my channel normally, in the OpenRails simulator, when the sun gets close to the horizon, it turns the sky around the sun pink, but only if you're looking at the sun, and then it's blue everywhere else. And sometimes it's gray before the sun sets and the stars come out while the sun is still up. Yeah, it's a mess. Next slowdown point is at milepost 63.2. Over there is High Spire, and you should very soon be able to see the Amtrak-owned Philadelphia to Harrisburg, otherwise known as the Keystone Corridor, descending from the left bank. This is a heavy train. Going full dynamics for a 1%? Oh my gosh. The dynamics do next to nothing. Well, that's gonna mean, geez, I hope we don't run out of air. Oh my gosh. All the ups and downs we're about to do. Yard in here. A lot of crazy industrial tracks that go all over the place, this Army Depot. decreases to 35. Still can't see the Keystone Corridor yet. We're going to rendezvous with it between Enola Yard and Marysville Yard. But it will be Norfolk Southern owned by the time we see it. Okay, here's our two turns right here. And I'm just going to let my speed decrease to 35 because it's coming up at about 0.6 miles. In fact, I might as well hit the brakes right now. Now there should be a bridge that I don't think exists anymore carrying a rail line from downtown Harrisburg. No, it still exists. But I don't think it, I think it goes over the tracks that we're on now. Jeez, where is it? I still can't find the Keystone Corridor. Place that we're concerned about is Stell. How concerned? Very concerned. I'll explain when we get to Stell. bridge carries the tracks across from downtown Harrisburg. So somewhere on the other side is the Harrisburg PRR station. That's certainly can't see it now. That red building over there is Pennsylvania Station, Harrisburg. Yeah, I want to say I can see it. into Enola Yard. And this place stinks. Because for the next 4 miles, we have to do 15 miles an hour. Because it's industrial tracks. So I can totally understand it if you guys don't want to sit through this 20 minutes of agony. So if you don't want to do it, I'll provide a time on screen that you can jump to get out of this misery. Meanwhile, I'm going to have to sit through it. This ends at location hip, coming out of Enola Yard. that's an interesting name. Baltimore Old Line. So let's see. The Baltimore had a independent short line, I think, called the Northern Central Railway, which ran up through York, and then from York, I think it wound south and joined us near Clyde. Actually, it was near York Haven. So how about that? This is where the old Northern Central Railway would have terminated. But it's not around anymore, although portions of it still exist, like the portion from York to here is intact. And everything from Baltimore Penn Station all the way up through Hunt Valley is covered by the Baltimore Light Rail. It runs on the same tracks, although the tracks have been electrified and are exclusively used for light rail. You know what? I take that back. I think there is one local that serves Timonium. There's one industrial track which goes north of Timonium, but no more than one train a day. Alright, so I finally figured this out. The instructions say between, and it's not what I was hoping for. The instructions show that between Hip and Mary, we can do 25. They say between Stell and Day, we can do 15, but it doesn't talk about Day and Hip. So after Day, you enter Enola Yard, and you're limited at 15. Is that an overheight detector? I think it is. In fact, you know what? We're getting pretty close to the end of the catenary, where we lose electrification, which is totally okay because we're in a diesel train. Oh, I can see the Rockville Bridge. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so going back to the speed limits, after looking at the map, coming out of Enola Yard, you have CP111. And CP111 is telling you, hey, your new milepost is 111. And there's another milepost shift, as you probably guessed by now. The reason that shift exists is because the Pittsburgh line is now going to be assuming the trackage. This is the modern end of the Port Road, where it feeds into the Pittsburgh line, and we follow distance from Philadelphia. So we become milepost 111. Now, within 1/10 of a mile after milepost 111 is the location of Hip Interlocking. So there's Hip, and that's where we can assume the Hip to Mary 25 miles per hour, which is like light speed given our current speed. Milepost 111 appears that it's about a mile and a half away. So at 15 miles an hour, to do a mile and a half, it's going to be 1/10 of 1 hour or 6 minutes. So it's 18:56. So 19:02 should be the acceleration time. And that'll be just 15 minutes from sunset. See how the train handles grades. We haven't seen something this steep at all. And we're going to have to deal with it if we get to Lewistown. Not looking good. We're at a 2.6. Now we're in the danger zone. It's a GP-59 with just 10 tank cars. I don't want to go any more than Notch 6 because I don't want to lurch forward, but geez, something must be wrong with the powering of this train. I mean, we're pulling 1200 amps and we're below continuous speed. I'm concerned that we're not going to make it up the pass. Well, it's not a pass, but not going to make it up the mountains. Totally okay if we're slowing down and doing 50. It's something different when I'm at Notch 6 and we're on a 2.8% grade and I see that our speed has come down to 6 and it's heading for 5. That's a bad sign. Okay, this is hip right here, so we're now accelerating to 25, and I'm moving over to the Harrisburg Terminal Subdivision, I believe it's called. Where the heck am I? Is our first mountain ridge. This is Blue Mountain itself, and I want my speed up because this is the first sustained mountain gradient that we're going to hit. This grade, it ends here. Alright, 2.2, that's a little bit better. Seeing speed build, so we're getting a little bit more amperage. Sun. Alright, 1200 RPM. If we reach 10 miles an hour, it's probably all over because we're in continuous at that point. I can't believe 10 tanker cars could bring a GP-59 to this point. Oh my gosh, 1400 amps. 1500 amps. If this train was simulated realistically, we'd be passing the 5-minute limitation. You get an emergency engine shutdown right about now. through maximum 1600 amps. We're pegged at the maximum amperage, and still we slow down. I don't think I've ever been in a train this close. This is what I thought it would be like with being in the F-45 going over Stevens Pass in that snowstorm. This is insane. 10-5, 10-4, 10-3, 10-2, 10-1, and I think we're continuous. I think this is lost at this point. Yeah, okay, that's it. So, folks, this is the first time a train has reached its maximum gradient power. Power will increase until you reach a certain point called continuous, which is about 10 miles an hour, and after that, if you're not accelerating, that's the end of it. We're going to coast to a stop here, and we will not be able to continue. The only way to continue would be to break the train up, which I don't want to do. So this is it. We just confirmed. Brakes off, brakes off, brakes off. And notch 8, yes, we are at maximum, no braking, all released, and this is it. Just 10 tank cars have destroyed this F-59. We are now moving backwards. That's it. Full service application. Well, this is mighty unplanned. To be fair, though, this is the first time I've used this engine, so I didn't know what to expect. But I certainly didn't expect this. Wow. If I did that with a train in real life, you might be seeing fire out the vents. I've seen that a couple times, where you see a train coming up a mountain grade, and it's working so hard, and it's going so slow, it's not getting any cooling. You see flames coming out of the roof. That could have been us today. So folks, this is it. I had planned to go all the way to Lewistown, but we have met our match on this hill. The very first time that this has ever happened to me. On screen. It's happened off screen when I tried to take I think it was an SD50 over Sand Patch grade. I had to split the train up, but I'm not doing that today. So let's see how much further. If we would continue to Duncannon, the reason why I'm concerned about this hill is because if I could just make it down the other side, we would be going downhill for 5 miles. Yeah, just 7 more miles. So we traveled 73 of the 80 miles. We are now stuck on Blue Mountain, which, if you're curious, goes up to 1,300 feet. The river elevation is 313 feet, and our current elevation is about 355 feet. And that is the end of it. So defeated on a 3.1% grade, which is a pretty steep grade, but still, I'm surprised that these tank cars were enough to defeat this engine. and the grade doesn't shallow until at least that signal post way up there. So that's it. But we did accomplish the goal of covering up the entire Port Road branch. We made it to the top of the Port Road. It's just we couldn't make it any further than that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the like button. I don't like to advertise because I absolutely hate advertisements with a vengeance. But it does help the channel out. And hey, at least you don't have to spend money to watch my videos, right? I'm never going to charge people to watch videos because I hate spending money. So, alright guys, and everyone, I've been Dr. Aeronomics, and I will see you guys next time. We're getting back into space mode. Bye-bye.